2-5, the distributive property. All three of these are examples of how you see this distributive property written. These examples are like the book would write if it wants you to say that this is the distributive property. Just like sometimes it wants you to tell if it's the associative property or the commutative property or the zero property. When it wants you to tell the distributive property for the answer, it writes it like this. There's always something in parentheses with a plus or minus sign and a number on the outside. The number on the outside can be on either side. And then you just go 3 times x, well 3 times x, 3 times 2, 3 times 2, like that. On this one that looks sort of backwards, you just go a times b. They always write them alphabetical. Some people might try to put BA there, and it really wouldn't be wrong, but in algebra we write things in alphabetical order. And then a times c. So this is just showing what the distributive property is and how to recognize it when you're trying to sort it out with the other properties. Okay? Now, the distributive property is actually a property that gets used a whole lot. Like you work this property in the problems. We've already done some of that. So let me remind you. The way you do this is you say 5 times x, and what is that? 5x. And then 5 times 7, and that's a negative or a minus 7. Well, that is minus 35. So I just distributed. I multiplied this times this and this times this. Okay? How do I know it's a distributive property? Well, it always looks the same. There's always parentheses, something inside that's added or subtracted, and a number hanging out on the outside. That's how I recognize the distributive property. So if you notice, here's another part that needs distributed. So I'm going to go ahead and write the plus sign down, and I'm going to say 4 times x, well, that's 4x. And 4 times 2, well, that's 8. Now, usually when you have two things to distribute, you're not completely done with the problem because I've distributed, but don't I have some things that could go together, some like terms? And if you remember, what makes something a like term is this part. The variable part, the exponent part, or the fact that there's not a variable or an exponent. So 5x is like 4x. They're like terms. So 5x plus 4x. Notice the plus in front goes with the 4x. So that's 9x. And then you have minus 35 and plus 8. So minus 35 or negative 35 plus 8 is going to leave you with negative 27. Okay, so you would write your answer 9x minus 27. Or you could put 9x plus negative 27. Those are the same. Okay, practice. Everyone, stop the video for a sec and do number 1 and 2. See if you can get the right answers and turn the tape back on. Don't forget to simplify. Okay, check your answers. Did you get it right? 6 times x, 6x. 6 times minus 2, minus 12. 3 times x, 3x. 3 times 7, 21. 4 times x, 4x. 4 times negative 5, negative 20. 3x plus 4x, 7x. Positive 21, negative 20, plus 1. Now, this is the one that sometimes kids have trouble with. And they have trouble with it for this reason. They don't take into account that this minus sign is stuck like glue to that 4. Okay? That minus 4 is going to multiply. Okay? If it bothers you, change it to plus a negative. Can't you do that? But that's got to be a negative 4. So that means when you distribute 5 times x, 5x, 5 times 3, plus 15. Then negative 4. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x. Negative 4 times negative 3 is plus 12. So you have to always account for the minus sign in front of a number that's going to be distributed. That's important. Then, when you put these together, you have 5x minus 4x. That's 1x. And you have plus 15 and plus 12. So it's going to be a positive number, positive 27. And that's your answer. Now, we need to learn a little math vocabulary. First of all, we need to learn what term means. Okay? Or terms. The expression above, 5x minus 2 plus 6x plus 7, has 4 terms. The plus and minus signs serve as dividers between the terms. So, if the book was to ask you to list the terms, you would go, 5x, negative 2, 6x, 7. Now, is anyone bothered by the fact that I wrote down negative 2? This is exactly why I've been telling you for a couple of years now that minus and negative are the same thing. Because see, remember this minus sign is stuck like glue to that 2? Everywhere that 2 goes, that minus sign goes. So that is actually negative 2. If you needed to, you could change it to plus and negative to see that. But those are the terms. If it said list the terms, that's what you would list. Now, there's another word. Oh, well, before we do the other word, let's do like terms. I think you know what that means already. Okay, I was interrupted, so I think I was saying, now let's talk about like terms. You guys probably know this, but, the book is going to ask, so I'm going to go over it. Okay, it's going to give you an expression, like the one above, and say, what are the like terms? And you are going to say, well, let's see, 5x and 6x are alike. Aren't they alike? And then the other two like terms are negative 2 and 7. Make sure you have a comma between, or you put them on 2 separate lines, because we need to be able to tell that, they're separate. So there's 2 sets of like terms in this. Now, the next word we need to learn, which you might have heard or not, I don't know, is called a coefficient. Coefficient. Coefficients. Okay? Coefficients are the numbers that are with the variable. So the numbers with the x's. So in this expression, the coefficients are 5 and 6. It's just a number with the variables. Okay? Next vocabulary, I'm going to scrunch it up here at the top, is the word constant. Okay? In this expression, there are a couple of constants. Constants are the numbers that don't have an x or a y with them, no variable, they're just plain numbers. So the constants in this case are negative 2 and 7. They're the constants. My 7 doesn't want to write. I'll try again. I'll write it down here. Negative 2 and 7. Those are the constants. Make sense? Let's try another one. Okay, here's another expression. First, let's identify the terms. Terms. What are the terms in this? 4x squared, 2x, negative 3, 4x, 7. You're just listing the terms. Then let's talk about the like terms. The like terms are 2x and 4x, comma, those are alike, and negative 3 and 7. So there's 2 sets of like terms. We don't write this one down because it's not like any of the others. Then what about coefficients? Coefficients. The coefficients are 4 2, and 4. Remember, coefficients are the numbers that are with the variables. And then there's 2 constants. Constants are the numbers that are not with the variables, they're just plain numbers. So our constants are -3 and 7. Okay, here's your video homework. You need your book, page 96 through 98, 1 through 7. Make sure you pay attention to example 5. Go down through it, read it, try to figure out how they made that equation. Try to understand example 5. It's a pretty important one. And plus, you have to understand it to be able to understand number 7. Have a good night.